Hello everyone, and welcome to another live session here. And we're here with the wonderful Nico Nang again. Hello, Nico. How are you?
Hey man, I'm good. Yeah, you pronounced my last name correctly. You remembered from
Excellent. Yeah, I
2 weeks
did. I
ago.
did. Do you know what? I actually watched the beginning of the previous session back to make sure I
Oh,
remembered it correctly.
I thought you remembered.
No, I'm way too old to be able to use my memory. My memory is now just this shriveled up thing somewhere in my head that used to be there. It's not very useful anymore.
Yeah.
But I do remember that the last session was on beveled lettering and was
Oh,
absolutely
yes.
awesome. And that was a couple of weeks back. So everyone do go and check that out because it was a wonderful session, and it ran on quite long because he was just giving so much detail, which was absolutely fantastic. So Nico, what will you be showing us today?
For today, the topic is going to be about lettering composition. So I'm going to share with you my process on how to create balanced lettering compositions. So yeah, I've actually been lettering since 2014, and I only started digital lettering or lettering on Procreate 2 years ago. So for how many years is that? About 6 years, I've been only working on paper, and I'm so used to creating on paper. When I got my iPad, I immediately installed Procreate, but I find it very difficult to create anything on Procreate coming from analog. So even like after like a year, I still haven't created anything that I'm really happy about because I'm so used to my process on paper and the tools that I have, the tools that I use when I create on paper. So this is why I created this pack. So this pack has all of the tools that I normally use on paper, so that when I create on screen, it's more familiar to me. I get the freedom of creating on paper here on the digital screen. So that's the reason why I created this pack. So, yeah, just a short story to start our
That's I mean,
session.
that's cool.
Okay.
I think it's amazing how many products are actually created out of what designers actually use themselves in their own toolbox and arsenal. And they're like, do you know what? I use all this stuff. I've created it, so I might as well sell it. So, other
Yes,
members of the design community can get the benefit of what I've created, which is really cool.
yeah, that's true. Actually, I think most of my products are I designed it for me to use. But since it worked for me, I might as well share it with everyone. So,
Awesome.
um, yeah, like the session 2 weeks ago, I always start with the overview of the steps, just so that it's going to be easier for you to follow along and know the reasons why we're doing this step. So this is what we're going to create today. If you have the pack, feel free to create along with me, to draw with me. And yeah, if you have any questions, just type them in the chat, and I think Matt will just ask me the questions if you have any questions.
I
So,
will do. There's a few questions in there already, but I
okay.
think they can probably be left
Okay.
a little bit later.
Yes, I haven't started. There are only
Yeah.
questions. Okay. So, with lettering composition, if you want to create a balanced, a consistent, and beautiful composition, the secret to that is to carefully plan it and to carefully execute it. So you have to plan it ahead of time to avoid all the mistakes that you might encounter, as well as the possible changes that you might do. You don't want to make any changes while you're already creating the composition, because if you change one thing, everything might not work together. So it's important to plan ahead so that you won't waste any time, and you have to execute it very well. So you have to carefully draw all of your guides, everything, because if you use guides and you just draw it, you just drew it quickly, and everything's crooked, or everything's not where they're supposed to be. When you draw your letters following those guides, you're going to get a crooked lettering or a misaligned lettering as well. So it's important to draw your guides very well. As you can see here in the layers, there are so many steps. But don't worry. There are a lot of steps because these are necessary. These are my secrets to how I create pieces like this. So yeah,
Cool. And
I'm
it's
gonna
super interesting
go.
that 40% of people watching today say they love to draw guides. but then followed up by 33% saying, I don't know how to draw guides. So this is going to be super useful for everyone, I'd say.
Yes, that's what I want to hear. Okay, so the first step is we always start with the layout. So for this one, just like what I've mentioned earlier, we want to make sure that we draw our guides very, very well, because if it's misaligned, our words are going to be misaligned after. So this is the first step. Second step is we are going to draw our letters. We have to make sure that we get the widths consistent, because we want consistency in our piece. So the letters that are supposed to have more or less the same width should have more or less the same width when you draw them. So for example, here, the letters N and O, they have more or less the same width, so you have to draw them in the same size. Whereas the W, it is wider, so make sure when you draw that letter, you have to make it wider. Okay. And then the next step is to adjust the spacing. So this is the really convenient thing about working on Procreate. You could easily adjust the spacing, which I feel like this is a super important step that most people overlook. So as early as the sketching stage, you have to make sure you fix the spacing, because it's going to be easier to adjust it now rather than later. And then the next step is we're going to warp. Is that the right term? We're going to warp, or we're going to fit our words into the layout shape that we picked out right there. And the next step is, this is, this looks weird, but this is the weight guides. So I always use weight guides. I have a brush for that, which I'm going to show you later. So yeah, we want everything to be consistent, right? That includes the weight. So we want the weight, or the thicker parts of the letters, to be consistent all throughout for the same word. For example, the thick part of the letter N, you want it to have the same thickness as the thick parts of the O and W. So this is another guide that I use to make sure that I have super clean and consistent letters. And after that, we're going to draw our letter using or following that weight guide and the layout shape. And then we're going to fill it, add some designs to our letters, and add decorations. And of course, we're going to finish it off with color and texture. Always put texture on your work.
That's awesome. It's amazing. Whenever we have someone in that does lettering, it's always, there's a big talk of consistency, and consistency in the letter forms and the kerning, etc. really gives you that sort of high quality font experience.
Yes, that's so true. So, I mean, personally, I want to spend so much time on the lettering piece because I want to make sure that it's going to be something I'm proud of. So that's a mindset I have. It's okay if I don't produce so many artworks to share, because what matters to me is just creating something that's really, really nice, something that I'm really, really happy about. So
that's awesome. Integrity over followers.
Yes, that's true. All right, so let us start. Okay. So with this pack, there are two ways to draw your lettering guide or your layout guide. So the first one is using a template. So this pack includes this template. If you are familiar with my physical product, it's a template. Let me have it here. So it looks something like this. So it works the same. So you just use this as guide to draw your shapes. So let me just quickly show you how to use this. This is for those who are used to drawing the shapes yourself. So if you find it really, if you like to draw the shapes yourself so that you have more control over the design of your layout, this is what you can use. So what you do is you just trace. So you have, oops, I need to switch to pencil brush. So just use this and trace it like that. Okay. And then if you want to combine it with a horizontal one, just draw a horizontal line. And then you have these measurements here to make sure that you create a shape that's going to be mirrored so that it's going to be perfectly centered on your layout. So for example, you cut here at -4, the dashed lines. Make sure you cut at the dashed lines here as well, so that it is going to be centered right here. So yeah, this is one way of drawing your guides, using this template to draw the shapes. If yeah, because for me, I love drawing the shapes myself. So this is why I created this template. But if you want something easier, I also have stamp brushes right here under the composition ruler brush set. So it has the same shapes as the template, but for this one, you are going to stamp it in on your canvas. So we're always going to start with the center line. Just click the center line brush and tap it to center, and then move it. This is going to be our reference guide, so that all the shapes that we're going to draw will always be centered. That way we're going to have a balanced layout. So next is we're going to start adding our shapes. So the first one, if you remember, it has a horizontal top and an arc bottom. So we're just going to select the horizontal brush right here, and then we're going to tap it. So these brushes are designed wherein if you tap it, the point where you tap your pencil, that's where the center is going to be. So it's going to be easy to center your line by just tapping, just tapping the center. Another way of adding this is you could tap from the outside, slide it in, wait, and then you could just move it around to place at the center. So that's another way of using this brush. So let's draw the second one. It's an arc top. So we could tap at the center, and then we could flip it. Okay. And then define the height. Okay. I'm sure you could see some yellow guides right here. I place them there because I want to create something exactly like this. Okay. So we now want to close our the left and right boundaries. So we have here these markings to help you cut them at the right size. So we have here the boundary lines brush. So what this does is it's a shortcut. You don't have to draw the vertical line anymore. Just tap it, and it's going to draw a line down. Just tap it at the point that you want. Yeah. So that's how you use the boundary lines brush. Another way to use the boundary lines brush is to draw like a straight line and move it around if you hold your pen. Yeah. So if you're lazy like me, you don't want to switch to pencil and then draw a line. Yeah, you could use the boundary lines brush. So the next shape is a rectangle. So we can use this horizontal pair. Let's just create it on a new layer. Let's just tap it, and then move it to the center, and then just size it like this. Okay, let's make it exactly like that. Okay, and then if you want to use the boundary brush, you could just erase the excess one and use those markings as guide to make sure that you're going to get a shape that's going to be centered still there. And then the last shape, it is a semicircle. So we also have a brush for that. So on a new layer, you have this circle shape. So let's just tap it and bring it to the center. Okay. And resize it. Okay. So if you want to create another semicircle, what you could do is duplicate it, transform, make sure uniform is turned on, and you're going to move the bottom one. This way you can define the size of that shape however you want.
Oh, that's cool, because Alyssa actually says, how do you maintain the width of letters in a semicircular layout? So I guess this is going to tie in with that as we go, because I can see all the little notches on those guides.
Yes, you have
Yeah.
those guys to help you cut it where it's supposed to be. So since this needs a diagonal line, let's switch to a pencil brush, and then let's just close it. Let's just draw a line like this, and just remember it's 1, 2, 2 thicker marks from the end. So 1, 2. So it's going to be here. So we're going to draw a line like that. There.
She also says, do you have suggestions for working on paper doing the same thing? But it looks like you've got a physical product that covers this base as well, Nico.
Yes. Yeah, I have a physical product. It's called Composition Ruler, which is
Awesome.
also the name of this this pack,
Yeah.
since it is based on that product. So once we're done with the guides, yeah, I'm gonna clean it up a little bit because I want to keep things neat and tidy. There. We now have our layout guide. Okay, we can now merge it just like that. So the next step is to draw our letters. So on a new layer, and on the lettering tools brush set, at the bottom we have letter spacers. So for this one, when I draw on paper, or I mean when I practice drawing on paper, I love using a grid notebook, a dotted or a grid notebook. That way I could draw a rectangle to get like the right ratio and use that as a guide when drawing all the letters so that I could get some consistency. So this is similar to that. So for example, this 3x4 means it's just like you're drawing on a grid notebook and you're drawing a 3x4 rectangle. So what you do here is you just draw a line, and then you could space the boxes. And then since this is for the first word, we're just going to keep 3 boxes. Okay.
That's super cool.
And after that, since this is, we're going to put the word now here, N-O-W. So N and O has more or less the same width, but the W has to be wider. So we need to widen this box. So using the rectangle selection, we're going to select half of it, move it to the right, like that. That way we'll remember to draw our W wider than the rest of the letters. Okay.
And Nico, I just actually linked up your physical products in the chat as well.
Thank
And
you.
Nita says, amazing templates for analogs. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's really cool that obviously you've done all the analog thing first. And I always think it's really great seeing that then transfer to digital. It gives you real depth to your skill set.
Yes. I mean, I use my background in engineering to like find solutions to my laziness. Going back, so next is the word or, now or never. So we're gonna pick a narrower one, and then just like that, and erase one. Oops. Okay. Since O and R more or less has the same width, so let's just leave it as is for now. And then the last one is never. So N-E-V-E-R, 5 letters. So let's just keep 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Never. Okay. 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 So we now have our guides for like the width and ratio of our letters. We can now start drawing our letter sketches or letter skeleton. So for this step, let's draw how our letters are going to look so that we can space them properly before we add them to our layout guides. So for the N, okay, we're going to have a thin. Let's do serif. So thin stems, and then thick diagonal stems like that. Diagonal stem like that, and draw our serif. So for this stage, it could be really rough. You don't really have to draw it really, really nice because these are just guides. One of the guides that I use. Okay, so O, be like that. Okay. At this stage, the weights doesn't have to be exactly consistent because we're going to use the weight guides or weight brushes later. So I'm just going to draw our letter. Okay. For the W, we have a thick diagonal step first, then thin, then thick again. Like that. Okay. I'm just doing this quick so that yeah, we don't have to spend so much time on this, so that we have more time to do the other steps. So this is yeah, what I normally do, and then I merge them, and now I adjust the spacing. So right now you can see the spacing here is narrower than here. So yeah, let's fix that so that we're gonna get letters that have proper spacing when we ink our lettering later. Let's move this closer right here. There. So good check. Now this has more or less the same size. Perfect. So let me see if I have prepared. Oh no. Okay. Okay. So let's do the letter O for the next word, which is or. Then quickly do something like that. So just sketch.
This
Yeah.
is the perils of having an international audience. They're currently discussing how much it would cost to get an international delivery of one of your analog products.
I mean,
It's a problem, right? We need global. You need to globalize.
yes, actually, if you're from the US, it's available on Amazon.
Oh, awesome.
If you're from Switzerland or Germany, I have reseller there. But unfortunately, none in the UK yet. I still have to look for a reseller. Yeah, that's another reason why I shifted to digital. I'm getting tired of shipping physical products.
Yeah,
so,
I bet.
yeah, digital products are way easier. Like that. Okay. Yeah. So once we're done with this, for the word never, since we're going to put it in a semicircle shape, we don't really have to adjust the spacing right now because there's going to be a different technique for it. So once we're done with this, we now have to, okay, let me just bring the opacity down. We're now going to fit it into the layout guide. So I don't know why I create this in the same layer. So let me just separate this, cut and paste so that it's on a new layer. Okay. So yeah, I think most of you are familiar with this technique. So we're just going to fit it. So I'm transforming or resizing this, and make sure freedom is turned on so that you could move things easier. And then we're going to use warp for that curved part. There. Okay. So the reason why we warp it first before we use the weight guides is because if we add the guides for the weight, or if we define the weights already before we warp it, the sizes are going to change after we warp it. For example, the letter O. So since this letter O is going to be squished in height, so it's if you squish it and you already drew the weights, you're going to get thinner lines for like the horizontal strokes. So my process is I add the weights after I warp the letter. Okay, and for the or, let's just select that. I'll cut and paste. The freedom, let's just fit in. Yeah. And then never. So for this one, wait, let me just bring this down. Oh, sorry, before that, we have to make sure that the height of these boxes have the same height as the shape I'm going to use. So, like that. And just squish it. Oops. There. And after that, we're going to move it. So we're going to select the first letter, move it, rotate it. Let's turn off magnetics and snapping first. And then we're going to move it here, like that. And then the last letter, let's move, select, rotate it, like that. Okay, so I usually do the first and last letter first, and then the middle letters. Like that, okay. Usually for this step, I take my time because this is a little tricky to do correctly. So yeah. Let me adjust the V a little bit. There. Okay. We now have our letter guides or letter skeletons in the layout shape. So since there are a lot of processes that are repetitive, like shading, and I don't want you to just spend like 10 minutes watching me shade the letters, so I've pre-prepared those steps in advance. So we're going to use them so that yeah, we're going to have the same result. So let me just hide what I did and bring up the guide I used or I made previously, which is just the same as this one we just did. Okay. So the next step is we're going to add weight guides. So we could bring the opacity down. Okay. And on a new layer, we're going to use the weight brushes. We have flat weight brushes and circular weight brushes. So if you have circular elements, just make sure you use the circular weight brush. So the reason why you have small, medium, large here is because we are all about consistency, right? So when we set the size for each brush, we're not going to change it anymore. Because if you only have one brush, let's say the large one, and you create it like this, and then you're going to shift to a thinner one, and then you're going to shift back to a thicker one, you have to get like the exact size. Otherwise, you're going to have different thickness within the same word. So to do that, we're going to set the weight of our brush. Let's make it thinner. That, okay. We're going to set for the large and for the medium. So the medium is going to be the brush or like the thickness guides for our thin parts of our letter, like that. So we can now draw the weight guides right there and shift back to the bigger one for the thicker part, like that. For the letter O, create something thinner. So at this stage, you want to make sure that like the widths are correct because we're going to use this guide later. So shift back to thick. So let's just draw some thickness here so we know how thick like the size of the O has to be. Like that. These guys look ugly, look messy, but they are super helpful in drawing consistent letters. So yeah, that's how I use the weight brushes. So it's up to you if you want to draw the entire line or if you just want to create some small guide like that. It's up to you. But that's how we get consistent thicknesses for our letters. So you want to repeat the same process for all of the other letters. When you do that, you're going to get something like this. Okay. I feel like I'm in like a cooking show wherein I put something in the oven and like a few seconds later, I took it out and it's cut.
Bing! Like magic.
Yes. I need a bell.
Hang on a minute. The last time we weren't we talking about cake the last time you were on as well? I feel there's we're
Oh,
recurring.
okay.
Did you manage to get
Now
some?
I'm
Because everything
craving
was
for
shut
cake.
right the last time.
Yes, no, I can't get a cake. That's why I don't want you to bring it up again, because if I crave for cake, I can't get it again. I have to wait for tomorrow. Okay. So when you're done with your weight guides, you can now start drawing your letters. So let's bring this down so that bring the opacity down so that it's not too distracting. Okay. Good. And then we can now start drawing our letters. So a new layer. We're going to use pencil brush, right? Oh, I mean drawing brush, okay, because we're going to draw the actual letter. And then we're going to use the weight guides and the letter skeleton guides. So we're going to draw a vertical line here for the stem of the letter N. Draw another one here. Okay, and make sure you follow the guide, the weight guide that you just made. That. Okay. Okay. It's okay if you don't get it exactly where the guides are, because it's okay if it's not super perfect. Yeah, the beauty of hand lettering is there are imperfections, but not a lot of them, hopefully, where it's just messy. So
Jay in chat is saying it's an amazing weight brush technique. Makes sense and very helpful in making consistent letter width. I've been struggling with that for so long. So it's super
I'm
useful.
glad you learned something from my process. So yeah. So I'm just drawing serif letters, but my personal style is I don't like to draw like straight or flat serifs. I want to curve it a little bit, just to give it a little bit more personality. But you could draw your letters however you want them. Yeah. So I now have my letter N, and yeah, that's how you use the weight guides, so that you're gonna get something clean and consistent after. So the O, okay, there. Okay, and then W, this is the thick part right here, and the thin part here. Okay, so if you notice, I don't draw my lines exactly on the edge, because I'm going to add serif anyway, and I don't want to erase the excess lines afterwards. So yeah. Oops. Now, as you can see, when you use the weight guides and the letter skeleton that you used earlier, you get consistent widths of your letters. You also have consistent thickness, which defines what quality work is. Okay, the same thing for the other letters.
Kemi's saying it's got something of an American traditional tattoo lettering feel, which is nice, right?
Oh, really? I didn't see it that way, but it's good to like know how others perceive your style. Okay, here, thick. So if you find it difficult to like see the guides, you could always opacity so that it's going to be more clear and visible. Okay. So now we have this. Next step is we're going to shade this. So I know the easier thing to do is to just color drop. That's the easiest thing. But for me, I personally like to fill it manually, because when you fill it manually, you get that really nice texture that that is gonna look like hand filled. That really nice texture. Okay. I know it takes more work, but this process is very relaxing to me because I don't really have to think a lot. I just have to make sure I color within the lines, and yeah, you're gonna get a really nice imperfect texture.
I think colouring is
Inside.
quite relaxing, isn't it? I always used to, I mean, I don't do it much nowadays, but when my daughter was younger, I used to colour with her, right? If she was
Yeah,
doing some colouring, I'd like join in. It's quite good.
yeah, it's fun to color if you have time to color.
Yeah.
Okay, like that. So you get those
Camille's
scratched
asking,
look.
is that still the same brush that you were using for the letter
Oh,
outlines?
okay. So everything that I'm using are in the brush pack. So I'm using the drawing brush. So I use the pencil brush for yeah, the pencil sketches, and then I use a drawing brush to ink the outlines as well as to fill, because this brush is designed with pressure, so you could draw thin to thick by just adjusting the pressure, as well as speed. So if you're really slow, it's going to be thick. If you're going to go fast, it's going to have that faded look. So yeah, this is the only brush that I use to draw the outlines as well as fill the letter.
Nice. Does have a nice analog feel to it.
Yes, that's what I want. It's more familiar and yeah, feels nice to do. Okay, so yeah, I don't have to shade the entire thing because you know how to shade. I don't need to teach you how to shade. But if you want to shade, use this brush, the NN drawing brush, okay, so that you can have that same texture. So let me put this in the oven, and
Ding!
ding, it's here. Found it. Okay. Ding, here. Oops. Oh, uh, the outline too. Okay.
Nice.
Wait, let me duplicate the outline again because I shaded on the outline earlier. There. So let me just merge this, and let me just erase these because I hate clutter. So yeah. Okay. So after you've filled or shaded your letters, for me, I don't want to end here. If you want to end here, if you want something super plain, it's okay. But personally, I want to add designs to it to make it pop a little bit more, to make it more attractive. So there are a lot of ways on how you can design your work. So you could add designs inside the letters with some inline designs. You could add some effect outside, like 3D effect. So it's up to you if yeah, what type of design you want to add to your work. So um, for me, I always use the detail brush for my for the designs. So for the inside, I like to I like to add something like this, like a fading effect. I don't know what the right term is for this. So yeah, this is one way you could design your letters. So I just add a lot of diagonal strokes like that. And then shade the bottom. So it's like filled in the bottom and then fading upward. That's the effect that I like to add to my work. Yeah, if you're familiar with Mark, you'll see me use this effect a lot.
Nice.
There.
So there's another nice outcome, which is guide me in your truth and teach me, which is actually on the product page. If you click the green button and take a look at that one, that's pretty cool as well. And I think that was on your Instagram as well, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that one. Really cool.
Okay. So if you want to do this effect, just create strokes, like repeating strokes, following like the shape of the letter. So earlier, this is just a straight diagonal line. That's why we're adding those lines in that diagonal direction. Since this is curved, we are like drawing curved lines like that. And then I'm gonna fill this base right here. There. And then you could do the same thing on the other side, going that direction, and this going this direction, that direction. So yeah, that's for the word now. And for the next letters, next word, if you want to do something different, for me, I like to draw a line inside. So like that, and just a line. I mean, just a simple line as this makes it a lot better. So just a line, okay, an inline, basically. Okay. For this one, let's do an inline as well, but with weight variation. So using the same brush, I always use the same brush. So light, and add pressure in the middle, and with something light there. So you could create something like this, wherein it has the same thickness all throughout, or experiment with weight a little bit. It's going to give it a very interesting look.
Awesome, Nico. And I'm just linking up a few more outcomes in your Instagram as well in the chat.
Oh, thank you for that.
There you go, which were obviously made with the made with this kit. They're really lovely.
Okay. So then put this in the oven to get a better outcome. I think this is the layer. There. So when we're done with this, you could add. You could also add some designs outside. You could add some 3D effect. For me, I want to keep it simple. So using the details brush, I'm just gonna add like a line shadow to it. Just add like a line to the lower left or lower right direction. Like that. Just to define the letters a little bit more. So yeah, if you check my work, you'll see that I also use this a lot because it's super easy to do. That sounds like an interesting project. I'm gonna 3D print something like that. Anyway, so yeah, it's a bit wobbly because I mean, you know the process. So let me just put it in the oven again, and ding, it's gonna be like move this right there. So and then after this, you can now add decorations. For me, yeah, I like to add decorations. I mean, I like to fill the empty spaces with decorations, and my go-to decorations are leaf illustration. So I have two brush sets for that. So the leaf stems and the leaf shapes. So for the leaf stems, you have just the stems. You have a lot of options from this. Oops, let me make it smaller, like that. Okay, you could just pick and then stamp these VS. You also have like pre-made ones. So like this, you just tap. Why is everything so big? Tap it, and then move it, and then just erase the parts that are you could erase it better, but you get the point. Like you just erase it so that it's not coinciding with the letters. Okay, but if you want to build like the decorations yourself, you could always use a stem and then I'm going to add the leaf shapes to it. So let's just use an example. For example, this. Okay, let's just draw one here at the side, because I think the design that I used doesn't have stems, so I just want to show it to you. So yeah, you could add the stem first and fill it with leaves. So the other brush set, you have a lot of options of the different shapes of leaves. And what you can do here is you just tap it. So these leaf brushes are designed wherein the point where you're going to tap your pencil, that's where it's going to start the leaf, and where your pencil is pointing towards, that is where the leaf is going to point. For example, this one, we want this to, we want a leaf at the tip of this curved line. It has to be facing up left, upper left, right? So when you're going to tap it, you're going to tap at the end of that line with your pen pointing that direction. So, oops, why did I change the eraser? Like that. And then if you just tap it, just move your Apple Pencil to where you want the leaf to be facing. So you don't have to draw each leaf one at a time. You can just use these stamps. Just make sure you tap at the stem. So it's going to start with the stem, and then you point your pencil where you want it to go. For example, the smaller one, tap here, tap like this, like that. This way, it's going to be easy for you to customize how your leaf is going to look. Okay. You could choose, you can mix a lot of different designs. It's too big, too small. Anyway, but yeah, you could use this brush set to customize your leaf, that so that you get something that will fit your layout if you want to place it on your composition. So let me erase that, because the example we're going to use are loose leaves, like they're bursting outward. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pick our leaf and then start decorating it. So we're going to add a leaf on the left of the letter O of the word or. You want it to be facing the left. So we're going to tap our pencil beside the letter O and to the left. And another thing about these leaf brushes is that it's pressure sensitive. So you could create something small. And if you want something big, you could press harder like that. Yeah. So you don't have to keep on changing the size of the brush, because you don't want something, you don't want your decorations to have the exact size, so you could play with it to get different sizes. Okay. And then you could switch to other shapes, and then just fill in the space like that. Yeah. So this is how I like to decorate my work. I'm going to shift to a different one. I like to fill the empty spaces with leaves. There. And then we switch to a different shape again. Maybe this droplet again. Let's make it smaller.
Everyone's loving this, Nico, by the way. It's really cool.
Really?
Such a time saver.
You know me, I'm lazy and I want to make it easier to create something that doesn't look simple. Something that looks complicated, complex, but it's easy to create. Yeah. So I just want to tap, 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 and to fill it. So make sure you balance the call this, the leaves on sides. Okay, there, something like that. So yeah. After that, okay, I'm trying to remember this next step. Okay, the next step is it's already like too late for my brain to function well, so I'm forgetting like the next step. The next step is to add details to your leaf designs. So if you're happy with this as is, it's okay. But if you want to add depth to your leaf illustrations, you could always add some details to it. For me, I just use the details brush on white and on a layer above it, Coloring mask. And then just draw something. It could be just a line, or if you want to like draw the actual veins like this, it's up to you on how you want to design or add details to your leaves so that it just doesn't look too flat anymore. So yeah, like that. Okay. I'm giving like the same detail for the same type of leaf. Okay. And then yeah, I think it's getting, we're gonna go over time. So let me put this in the oven and yeah, like that. Okay, there. So after that, if you wanna finish like this, it's okay. But for me, I always think of ways to like decoration for me is to add sparkles. And it makes your work look nicer, in my opinion. So what I normally do is, since you want to make sure that everything's balanced, I always go back to my guides. So let me bring out this composition ruler semicircles. Oops, wrong byte. There. Let's just rotate it. Okay. Let's turn on magnetics and snapping. Like that. Okay. And let's place it like this. Okay. And we're going to add sparkles within this semicircle shape so that when we remove all of the guides, it's going to form like a curved top so that it doesn't look all over the place. Like it won't look super disorganized. So after that, you could just draw your sparkles. I'm doing this quick because I'm sure you all know how to some sparkles already, like that. Like that. For me, I like to distribute the sparkles. I like to add different sizes to it so that it's going to look more interesting. So I always add just one. I always add one big with 2 medium size and 3 smaller sizes. So that's one set of sparkles. That's how I add sparkles. So just sparkles on this entire area, this area right here. And then I also like to piece to it. And this semicircle guide, it looks like a protractor. It's a very, very helpful guide for you to draw your rays, because if you want to draw rays, you want to make sure they have the same focal point so that it doesn't look messy. Use those guides to draw your, it's going to look more organized. So I have it right here, so let me just show it. These are sparkles. For me, I always like to add so many details, so I also add dots just to fill in those empty spaces, because sometimes after you add decorations, you'll feel like certain parts of layout has fewer decorations compared to the other ones. So for me, I add dots. I use dots just to balance everything out. And yeah, when you're done with this, you can color it however you want. If you have your own like color palette that you always use, you could use that. But for me, I like black and white and gold. So yeah, that is the process. So I think the important process, the guides very, very well, and stick to the guides so that you could achieve or create something balanced and consistent like this. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thanks ever so much, Nico. That was, as ever, an absolutely amazing session with a huge amount of value. Whenever you do our sessions, you always pack in more value than anyone else, quite frankly. It's just, you just cram it in there. It's literally like you get the value in the suitcase and you have to sit on it to close it at the end of the session. I think our community are also quite keen on you creating a magic oven, like your magic oven, so that they can use it in their artwork. So if that's possible, we can sell it with the other physical products on your website.
Next product, an oven.
That's the next one. Cool. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's an awesome session. Thanks ever so much. Anyone who wants to check out this wonderful product, do click on the little green button at the bottom. It's a fantastic product. And as you can see, there's loads of depth there, not just in terms of the guides, but in terms of the brushes you get there and all the little brushes for actually finishing off the artwork, etc. Do check out Nico's Instagram to see how he uses that product more, because there's some really beautiful pieces on there as well. And I know Fran's been linking that up. So yeah, awesome. Nico, thank you ever so much. It's quite broken up my end in terms of connection, so hopefully you can hear me, and hopefully we'll have you back very soon for another live session to share all of your awesome skills.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Yeah, I know I've been rushing like some of the process because there are a lot and we only have 1 hour. If you want to see like a more real-time process, I have some videos on my YouTube wherein I'm showing how to use each of the types of brushes in this set. So you can check that out. And if you have any questions, I mean, you can just DM me. I'd love to like help you out if you have any questions. Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks ever so much. We've kind of run out of time a little bit in this session to ask questions, but yeah, do pop along soon. DM Nico on Instagram and he will answer any questions that you might have that we didn't have time to cover in this session. Thank you ever so much, Nico. Thank you, everyone. And we will see you again here next week.